So since this episode has a ton of Nara scenes, I found a hiding place that will allow me to safely gush over her. Hopefully Cecile doesn't find me here. Also, since this series is unapologetically copying the original anime, I've created this meter that I'll track every time that happens in this episode. Okay, it looks like the coast is clear, so let's get started. And I wasn't kidding when saying that Nara appears a lot in this episode, because right away we begin with Divek calling her using a private line. Private line sounds awfully familiar. He apologizes since she should be leading this operation and not him, and based on his future performance, he's 100% right. Anyways, Nara, who looks amazing as always, agrees to focus on dealing with the 7 Shining Stars ground forces. Also, this conversation reminds me of the one between Cornelia and Dalton. Before ending the call, Divik tells Nara that he'll handle exterminating the 11s. Nara then questions the act of killing innocent civilians. I like this character, as you know, but that level of ignorance is hard to accept considering the situation. Back at the 7 Shining Stars base, Rose reveals the plans of the enemies that she got courtesy of her inside collaborators. That's code word for using Gias on them. And that also reminds me of something. Anyways, they formulate this plan based on the data. Ash immediately volunteers to find Nara because she's strong and maybe for another reason. But Rose shuts that down because she needs him to do something more important, which relates to using the Flea Eliminator. Then she gives No Offense a mid-motivational speech and the intro begins. After that colorful intro that still doesn't look any different from before, we go back to the van, and it looks like they are reusing old animation from earlier episodes minus some minor changes. Anything to save money, I guess. Rose talks to Nina about the Fleas, and here we get an answer to something you've all been wondering. How in the blue hell did Neo Britannia acquire Flea warheads? And the answer, drum roll please. Fleas are difficult to make, so Schneisel took all the ones they made at the time, but after reviewing the records, there were some he didn't take. Probably because they were made later on, or he messed up. I hope it's not the latter. Anyways, Neo Britannia acquired those few Fleas left over, which Nina speculates can't be more than 3. By the way, I know Nara is my favorite, but Sakai looks amazing here. God, it's so hard to focus on this terrible plot sometimes, which is never a bad thing. Rose then asks Sakai to tell I'm Kuroto, not Toto, to inform him that everything is going as planned. Then Rose and Ash stop because of the real threat of the series, writer's block. I mean roadblocks. Thanks to her Gias, the guards let her pass, and Ash accepts the explanation that this person is another collaborator. Back at the Neo Britannian government officer front shrine,
Say that 3 times fast.
Sakura tries to convince Norlon to not go through with using the Fleas on the Sapporo ghetto. Knowing that Norlon would be hard to convince, she uses her greatest weapon, her large bust. But Norlon is a Sigma male, so these distractions don't work on him. Jokes aside, why would ruining his reputation among the international community bother Norlon? Sakura, he invaded the Hokkaido block with the Damocles and killed the Black Knight representatives. To quote someone smarter than me,
not a great plan.
Sakura realized that she really is just a puppet emperor. Wasn't that
obvious?
We go back to the Damocles as it travels to the Sapporo ghetto. Divik is enjoying sitting on the throne that once belonged to Schneisel. They detect the 7 Shining Stars ground units, and he won't believe what he does next. He opens the Blade's luminous shields to allow his nightmare frames to bombard the ground forces. Yoko finally does something useful besides the usual and forms all the ground units of Divik's stupidity, so the 7 Shining Stars on the ground are able to fire missiles through the opening of the Blade's luminous shields. Divik even seemed annoyed and surprised here. I can't make this up. Nara then launches from the airships just like Cornelia and the other Britannian forces did in the past. The Queen immediately moves in, dealing damage with the 2 machine guns on her Nightmare Frame's arms and the impressive arm blades. Divik then has the Damocles resume its course, which will take until sunset to reach the Sopro Ghetto. But then something familiar happens. The 7 shining stars start their ground operation from the sky using VTOLs to carry the Nightmare Frames, which is exactly what Lelouch did in turn 6 to attack Britannia's airships in order to capture Nunnally. Also, we see Rosé traveling in the Z Artemis, which has a fortress mode that looks oddly similar to the Shinkiro. Rosé reveals another new innovation. The Z Artemis has countermeasures for the Blaze luminous shields. I assume Lloyd or Rakshata created it. It would have been nice to have seen this on screen, but whatever, it is more important to see Sakya in her undies as much as possible. Anyways, using this technology, Rosé along with the other Nightmare Frames are able to land on the Damocles, which mirrors how Lelouch got through the shields. Except he got in from an opening Schneisel created, used the Shinkiro to keep it open, and they lost 1 unit in the process. Divik is not happy, just like Schneisel wasn't when Lelouch got through and Suzaku did some damage. Rosé heads out to take control of the Damocles, while the remaining forces begin to plant bombs on each of the float units. Haruka shows her results from doing so much yoga. I wonder if Colin is in her class. Back on the ground, Nara obliterates Iwamoto's forces. Her beauty and combat abilities are unmatched on the battlefield. Also, she is correct in pointing out that Iwamoto is a dumbass. To be fair, we already knew that from the last episode. Seriously, these close-ups of Nara are amazing. Just when things look bad for the 7 shining stars, Oda is here to save the day. At least he seems more competent. Then the other 7 shining stars join in on the ambush of the Neo-Britannian forces. This is followed by the 7 shining stars detonating mines that they planted on the battlefield. Kuroto, not Toto, is doing a good job so far. Even Nara is impressed with their tactics. I noticed that most of the commercial breaks occur after seeing a close-up of Nara's face. And you know what? I'm not even mad about that. It's probably the best part of the whole episode. After the break, we learn that the first and the third squads have set up the bombs, but the second squad was wiped out and the fourth squad is still setting up. Once the fourth squad is done, the big mofo himself, Divik, appears in his massive Nightmare Frame and is quick to call the Japanese people monkeys. How very Britannian of him. Man, that Nightmare Frame looks awesome. Tomi prepares to fight Divok, while Rosé and the Damocles operators that she geassed work on taking over the Damocles. She learned that they have 2 Fleas. They are labeled 2 and 4, which means that Flea number 3 hasn't been accounted for. That'll come up later. Anyways, Norlon has a contingency plan here where his men killed anyone who disobeyed any order. So there goes Rosé's grand plan. Also, Rosé used Gias on people to control the Damocles, which is what Lelouch did, so I guess she didn't want to risk using her Gias on the soldiers who stormed the control room. Back on the Damocles itself, Divik easily overpowers Tomi and removes the bombs. Before he can finish off Tomi, Haruka appears cutting off the barrel of his gun. Divik comments on the Japanese incompetence with the racial slur, which reminds me of what Jeremiah said before fighting Colin. We also are about to see Nightmare Frames fight on the Damocles like what Suzaku and Gino did, or Colin and Suzaku. While Haruka fights Divik, they use the angles that we saw with Colin. Haruka kicks his ass, forcing Divik to flee back to the Damocles to fire the Flea. Rosé tells Haruka to not pursue, and then we learn from Kuroto, not Toto, that since his forces are pulling away, the Damocles is about to fire the Flea. You think? Divik, like a dumbass, doesn't instruct his forces to remove the other bombs on the Damocles, choosing to instead go back to the Damocles Control Center. During that time, I'm Kuroto, not Todo, has the 2nd and 4th squads arm the bombs. After everyone gets away from the Damocles, avoiding the Blaze luminous shields, they detonate those bombs. Divik isn't happy about this, nor wonders why there's blood in the room. All he cares about is firing the Flea, even if they won't achieve the maximum effect in using it. The Flea is fired, which freaks out Nina, but don't worry, Ash is here to use the Flea Eliminator, just like how Zaku did, only this time it requires less skill thanks to Nina's improvements. Rose then goes back to Nina to get another Flea Eliminator, so it looks like they can just mass produce these now. Neat. Divok prepares to fire the next Flea, which I'm Kuroto, not Todo, states will cause a rate of damage over 70%.
That's not good.
I'm Kuroto, not Todo, then redeploys his units to different areas. Haruka goes to support the ground units, which leaves good old Tomi, who decided to sacrifice his life to take out the 4th Damocles float unit to prevent Divok from launching the Fleas. I speak for everyone when I say,
who cares?
The man did one useful thing before he died. We also learned during this that since all the energy was directed to allowing the Damocles to fly, they couldn't use the Blaze luminous shields. This allowed Rose and the 7 shining stars to get away earlier. At least I think that's what happened. Divok realized he messed up, and to avoid Norlan's wrath, he proceeded with Plan B. Meanwhile, Rose informs I'm Kuroto, not Todo, that they will be destroying the Damocles instead of taking it over. Also, we get an epic scene where Nina gives her another Flea Eliminator. To deal with Nara, I'm Kuroto, not Todo, sends an Oda squad who don't last long against her. But she at least complemented their skills. As Nara takes out Oda's squad, Ash shows up to take her on, so Ash gets his wish anyways. Nara during the battle realized that Ash is the pilot of the Z Apollo. Back at the government office, Kristoff calls Norlan an idiot and proceeds to go out and assist Nara and Divok. Kristoff is based as hell in this episode. The battle between Ash and Nara continues, and thankfully she survived his death move and now knows for sure that Ash is indeed the pilot. She then learns that the 7 shining stars are ambushing their forces using nightmare frames on VTOLs. Nara then orders a retreat. Divok can't accept this, but Nara is right. The mission failed since the Damocles can't fire Fleas. Then Kristoff calls Nara, and her expression during this scene is beautiful. Just amazing. Divok then rage quits by taking his damaged nightmare frame and the Flea on a hovercraft, speeding away to the Sapro ghetto. He decides to do his Andross impersonation.
If I go down, I'm taking you with me.
To stop Divok, Ash and Rose combined. No, not like that. At least not yet. Rather, their nightmare frames combine, like in Power Rangers or Oz of the Reflection, to form the Ortigia. This makes, Coom in her pants. Besides Nara, this was the best part of the episode. With its insane speed, Ash and Rose easily catch up to Divok, prevent his flare from detonating, and kill him in the process. Everything is going well until Kristoff appears out of the blue and uses the last Flea on the Damocles, causing it to start to fall on everyone. Makes you wonder why they didn't use a ship like that to fire the Fleas to begin with. Kristoff is right, Norlan really is a dumbass. Nara graces us with her beauty one last time in this episode by speculating that they had planned on discarding the Damocles from the start, which makes everything essentially pointless. Oh, you found me. And I suppose you heard everything I said, huh? Well, listen, let me explain. Ow! 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 Okay, I get it. Let me be clear, okay, that even though I complimented Nara's beauty and her nightmare frame skills several times in this episode, Cecile is obviously superior in both of those departments. Well, I don't know about that last one. Ow! I was just kidding. Okay, are we good? Anyways, the Damocles continues to fall, which terrifies everyone, and the episode ends on an interesting cliffhanger. Hope you enjoyed the recap. I know I didn't. Thanks a lot, Cecile. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on the 5th episode of Rose ad Recapture. As always, while you're here, check out my reactions to the 5th episode, which you can watch
right here.
Right now!